At Two College Brothers Moving, Storage, and Franchising, we are Team SmartMoving. This has been the CRM that we have used for the last 4 years, and it has grown right alongside with us. I love all the features, all the reporting tools, how easy it makes to schedule, book, sell, dispatch crews. It really is an intuitive software. It's really dialed in without the bugs and the glitches that we've experienced with other softwares in the past. So it still amazes me if a company is not using a CRM. I still find companies that are doing it the old-fashioned way with spreadsheets and calendars and notes and handwriting job orders, and you don't have to do that with SmartMoving. That's a bottleneck that's holding you back if that's you. So make the switch to SmartMoving, whether you're using a CRM or not. It truly is the smartest move you'll ever make, just like we tell our clients that we're the smartest move you'll ever make. So check out SmartMoving today and schedule your free demo. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Sweikel, and today's guest I actually met at a franchise trade show in Atlanta, where we were setting up a booth for a Two College Brothers Moving and Storage franchise in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, and you're looking to go into business for yourself but not by yourself, feel free to inquire about that territory or territories that are in that market. But today's guest is Cash Miller. He's the CEO of Titan Digital and Titan Media, and he's a fellow podcaster. In fact, he is a host of a couple of podcasts called Emerging Brands and Marketing Masters. He's also an Army veteran. Thank you for your service, Cash, and a member of the 2022 Inc. 5000 list. Cash, welcome to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here, Wade.
So tell me a little bit about what you do with the Titan companies. Love the name, by the way. I have a couple of Titan companies myself, and I think that's initially a connection that we made when we first started talking with Moving Titan Retreats and soon to launch Titan Up Training. But I want to hear about Titan Digital, what got you into the digital marketing space, and then let's talk a little bit about the services that you offer with Titan Media and how you got into podcasting, if you don't mind sharing your story.
Well, on the Titan Digital side, it's a digital marketing agency. So we do, everything from building websites to pay-per-click ads, SEO, and things. It's full service. I started in 2011. It was actually like my exit plan, from the Army. I spent over 2 different enlistments, 7.5 years roughly, and was kind of tired of going all the places. Say the Army's great if you want to see the world, except that they're going to send you to some of the places that you really wouldn't choose if you were going on vacation. So I ended up learning SEO starting in like 2007, and eventually I made it like a career, choice to be able to, start an agency. We've built it up over the years. Like you mentioned, we made the 2022 Inc. 5000 list, and we've got like a little over 30 employees across multiple states and Costa Rica as well. And so, that we work with a lot of companies across the country. We've got roughly 600-ish clients. We manage a lot of websites, run a lot of marketing campaigns for people. And then we've gotten, over the last, recent bit, we've started going into the podcasting space because it's a really exciting thing. And I started a separate company, Titan Media Worx, that focuses on producing in-house shows, but also podcasts for other people. And, so the couple of in-house shows that I run, Marketing Masters is a focus on marketing, and Emerging Brands actually is about talking to franchises and business opportunities because, I run a couple of businesses. The passion is entrepreneurship. It's like, I love diving into different business concepts and seeing kind of what makes them tick. Being in marketing for so long, I've had a lot of opportunities to visit clients and their facilities and see, what really makes them work. And it's a lot of fun because, my family, we've always been like entrepreneurs. It's just one of those things that it's just kind of in the blood. And so when I get the chance to see somebody else's operation and see how it's working and, how do they make money? How do they build it up? It's like I say, I really enjoy that because it keeps business interesting.
I love that. So, what got you into SEO straight from the army? Did you start, learning that while you were serving, or was that something that you were just interested in and decided to learn once you got out? I'm curious, where the foundation there was.
Well, so when I was way back when, in the 90s, I served in the Army from like 95 to 98. And my father was, he'd always been an entrepreneur, and he ran an upholstery company, but he had other things he was doing. I lived in Las Vegas, and he, in 98, I was looking to, leave the military for the first time. And he offered me the opportunity to say, hey, do you want to take over this business? Because my father was like a really smart guy, and he was really good with numbers, and he was actually going into commodities trading. And so he was like, hey, I've got this. If you want to take it over, I know you want to get out of the military. Yeah. And so I did. And I ended up building up an upholstery business in Las Vegas that we serviced a lot of restaurants and a lot of, casinos and such. But it was a very stressful type of business. And eventually my father passed away, and I was like, I got to a point of like, do I want to do this anymore? I was constantly working. I was stressed out. I really didn't enjoy what I was doing anymore. And so eventually I decided to shut it down, but I'd gotten married. I had my first kid, and I'm like, I got to make a living. So I said, let's do the one thing I know how to do, like the other thing I know how to do anyway. And so I decided to go back in the military, and it was 2007 that I went back in, and I knew I would get deployed and stuff. We were in the middle of Iraq, Afghanistan, and I was like, I'm going to do it anyway because I got a family support. And I thought when I went back in, I'm like, I'm going to make this a career. I'll do 20 years. Yeah. I'll figure out how to get my way, make my way up the ranks and everything. I ended up like within a year, I was about to go to Iraq, and I'm like, I still had the itch. That was the problem. Like, I was like, I'll never run another business again. And like within a year, I'm like, okay, well, maybe one day I'll run a business again. But I got like all this knowledge and all the things, because I'd run a business for 8 years. And I'm like, okay, maybe what if I started a website? Yeah. And I'll write a bunch of content. I don't know anything about this particular space, but I'll start a website. It's a hobby. I'll publish a bunch of content. I'll share business knowledge with other people. Maybe some of the mistakes I made, some of the things I did right. Maybe I help somebody else, if they read that content. And I started writing like constantly. I went to Iraq and I kept writing. And eventually I built a website, and I'm like, okay, how do you get any traffic to this thing? So, you discover SEO. And this is like 2007, 2008. And it was still very new at the time. A lot of businesses hadn't embraced it as a way of marketing and things. But I started actually having some success getting traffic, and I started experimenting on how do you make money, with a website and with that traffic. And eventually so I decided I don't want to write all the content. Let's go find some other people to write content. And I ended up connecting with a bunch of business coaches. To this day, I'm still connected with some of them. And I said, can I use your content? I'll give you a link back to your website and everything, because I found, now I know kind of the foundations of, SEO. And eventually some of them were like, hey, we are like getting traffic to our site from your site. And could you do something like what you're doing for yourself? Could you do it for us? And I was like, sure. So before like, people were taking on side gigs regularly and stuff, I was like, here, I'll do it. I got a day job. I wouldn't bother really mentioning what that was, but I said, I can do it. And so I started taking on paid clients. And eventually 2011 rolls around. I'm like, my contract with the Army was coming to an end. I was in Afghanistan. I'm like, okay, I'm not real keen about this constant deploying. Like, I know it's what I signed up for, but do I want to keep doing it? And I'm like, really, I think I want to go back to running a business. And so now it's like, what do I do? What do I start? I looked at, getting out, maybe some jobs and stuff. And I'm like, maybe I can make the SEO thing, a full-time gig. And so I started from scratch. And, 2011, I opened my agency, and it's like, over the years, piece by piece, you grow it.
So what kind of industries do you specialize in with SEO? And what are some things that a small business can utilize that can enhance their SEO?
Well, there's a ton of stuff that you can do from the SEO standpoint. Most businesses that are out there, we have a very service-based economy. So when you have that, moving companies as an example, people do a lot of searches. I say they're going to look on Google Maps. They're going to look organically. They're going to do paid ads and such. And I've worked with pretty much everybody. I've worked with moving companies. We work with a lot of insurance agencies. I work with a lot of Ace hardware stores. You name it. Like I say, we have a pretty large client base. So there's a lot of things that, types of businesses we work with, but most of them have something in common in that they're location based for us. And those are the businesses that can really, take advantage of SEO and paid ads and things because, it's a crowded landscape depending on where, you're located. I have a philosophy about, if you're trying to determine whether you have a chance in the space, doing SEO and stuff, it's going to come down to how big of a city you're in. The bigger the city, the more competition you will naturally have. And you need to consider that. But then you also consider what's the industry you're in and if that is more competitive too. Because you're going to have some industries that are less competitive. There's just not as many people, that are doing what you do. And so it's going to be, even in larger cities, easier to rank and such. But you're going to have also some, you think home services, plumbers and HVAC and electricians and stuff. That's a very crowded space. So when you get into a big city, it's a lot harder because, Google's going to show, everybody gets a space, but how far people go down on the search results. Yeah, most of them are going to look at the first, if it's on Google Maps, they'll look like maybe through the first half dozen. Might go a little bit further. One of the big dictating factors of how far they'll go is what they're seeing for reviews now. If there's a lot of people, like the first few companies you see, they may rank high, but if their reviews aren't very good, people will scroll down further. And right now for location-based businesses, Google Maps is where it's at. The organic results, which used to be valuable, have lost their edge because the paid ads, you've got AI now showing up in the search results. So it takes a while to get to the organic results. And so they're not as valuable. Plus, you have competition from other list-like businesses, think Yelp and stuff, that take up some of that space. And, so the opportunity really depends on the type of business and then where they are physically located. I am south of Nashville is where I'm based. And if you're in Nashville, it's like super competitive. There's a lot of people. And so if you have, 50 companies, because what SEO is you're influencing the results. You're influencing Google, by doing things, by, optimizing your site better and creating more backlinks. So if you've got a bunch of people that have, whoever's ranking, somebody's ranking first, second, third, you have to beat them out. And if you're starting later, you're just getting going, that can be very hard to do. There's other avenues, of course, with like paid ads and stuff to market yourself, but every situation's different.
Gotcha. What would you say the best way for companies to get good reviews that are sticky for SEO purposes? I've heard conflicting things on, it's just the number of reviews, it's the overall rating, it's pictures, it's if you name people by name. How can we optimize our GMB profiles to be more appealing for Google to influence?
Reviews are huge, especially for Google, because people are really. 5 years ago, you barely saw reviews. A company would have 20 or 30 or something, maybe. Those would be the bigger companies. Now, they have, look in the auto dealership area, they'll have thousands of reviews. And most even home services, like I say, moving companies, anybody that goes for, where a homeowner is that potential client for them or customer, there's going to be a lot of reviews. I've seen plumbing companies that have 800-900 reviews. And so now there's a kind of a point of diminishing returns, I think, on how many you get, but you do want to continue to get them because you want stuff that's recent. That really matters. But, the way to do it, honestly, is to use a software. Some of the stuff like that's offered, Like we help people with reviews. We have, review management software that can help get those reviews. You hook up things like your CRM. So when you bring in a new customer, all right, you bring that customer in, you know that they're satisfied. The system knows, like, when you're completed with the job, to send them a request. Hey, if you love the service, could you leave us a review? You can't really offer like, hey, give us a good review or anything. There's like, if they're going to be negative, they're going to be negative. You're opening yourself up to that. But if you've got a good service and you take care of customers, then you're going to be, they will get those positive. I like to tell people, like, when you piss somebody off, the odds are they're going to leave you a negative review. But when you make somebody happy, the odds are they won't leave you a good review. It's like, in the moment when you're mad at a company, you're more likely to take action. So you have to continuously ask people, that are probably happy with what you did, to leave that review. If you do not solicit them, you won't get them, not on a regular basis. So software makes it a big differentiator. You need to go, if you're using that kind of thing, you can get those numbers and you can put it on autopilot. That's the thing, is you don't have to continually manually solicit, which takes a lot of time. The software makes a big difference. You can upload, even if you don't connect it to like your CRM or QuickBooks or something like that, you can upload the spreadsheet. So you can download your customer list and get the most recent people, upload it into the most of the good softwares, and they will drip on these people. They're not going to mass email and say, hey, have thousands of people suddenly ask for reviews. It's just going to drip on them. You're going to set it to say, hey, let's hit so many people per day. And you can hit them with text messages too. So that's what you want to do, is you want to have a continuous process in place.
That makes total sense. Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part, this resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email. One of the worst parts about owning a moving company has to be finding quality movers and drivers. Trying to run all the job ads takes up time, and then you schedule guys to come in for interviews and they never show up. It's a massive headache. Well, let me tell you about a good friend of mine named Winston who runs a company called Move Up Consulting. Move Up specializes in hiring and recruiting for the moving and storage industry, and they do all the lead generation for mover and driver candidates. They have a fully built hiring CRM, plus you get a dedicated account manager who phone interviews and screens all of your candidates. Once they find qualified candidates, they schedule in-person interviews for you and your management team so you can make great hires. They even handle all the appointment confirmations. It's that simple. To start building a better moving team today, visit moveupconsulting.com and tell them Wade sent you. Want to know what the silver bullet for growing your business is? USA Home Listings. USA Home Listings has a myriad of marketing services that are essential to every single moving company. It blows my mind when I have conversations with people who reach out looking for help, trying to get leads, trying to get the phone to ring, that aren't doing mailers and aren't subscribed to USA Home Listings. The data there is so invaluable, and it's not just home listing data, even though that's an awesome, super easy, super intuitive feature that they provide where you can filter out all of the homes that recently went under contract or got listed in your neighborhood, and a new coming soon feature before it even hits the MLS that you can filter out through zip codes, towns, cities, counties, prices. But that's just one small feature that they do. They also have turnkey mailing services. They'll help you design your postcard, a postcard that actually gets results. If you've tried mailers in the past and it didn't work, it's probably because you didn't have the right elements on your postcard. And they also have a social media division. So check out usahomelistings.com. It's an essential addition to all of your marketing needs. Before you do any other marketing, check out usahomelistings.com. For a new company that's starting out in the home service business, obviously we have mostly moving company owners that listen to this. Say, we were to sell a franchise in a new city and we're helping with site selection. What advice do you have for selecting a site to hopefully try to rank in Google My Business or Maps or the local, whatever they call it these days? I know those changes.
Yeah, I know it changes.
Yeah.
Constantly.
So like where, I know I've noticed here in our existing markets that we tend to rank at the top when we're closer to the office. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, on location. Are co-working spaces okay? Does it need to be a standalone building? Can it be an office suite in a larger complex? What areas should it be close to? I want to hear your thoughts on geography of site selection for trying to get ahead of the game in ranking on the local map.
Well, so maps is partly, it's a radius thing, and it is partly based on where the actual search took place. Okay. Now you can strengthen listings over time. That's more directories and things, that provide backlinks, because Google looks at everything as being a trust factor. So the more places I see you online, the more I believe you are legitimate. It doesn't really matter of a standalone building versus a suite or anything like that. Now, if you're going to be on for example, with moving companies, often they might want to have something along the lines of storage space and stuff, for, when they're moving people, they may have to have some stuff that they, store for a short period of time. The issue you're going to have is if you go to something that's on the outskirts of a city, that's going to be a problem. Okay. So the closer you are to the city center, it will make a difference, because you have to think about this. The city center is one of the factors, when you're ranking. So if you're up, as high north as you can get, right on the edges of the city, then the people on the south, you are the furthest away business. Okay. Versus if you're in the center, now you're kind of equally divided. So if you're in the north, those people are going to get you, first often if your listing is pretty strong, but the south, and you've got, say you have another 15 or 20 companies around, the people in the south are going to get those people that are, nearest to them more likely. You can show up if you have a really strong listing, but you're going to make it harder because you're so far away, versus if you're in the center, so if you're somewhere around the center, you're equally spread, north, south, east, and west, so that's going to be one of the biggest things. But the type of like say, you can't do PO boxes or anything like that, but you can do co-working spaces. As long as you can have an actual address, you can do that. Now, Google's made it harder to confirm things. They've got people doing like video walkthroughs and stuff that you have to submit. So you want to show that it is a legitimate business, and to do that, like I say, you actually have to set up. So, because they have some things that are like, hey, we'll give you an actual address to get around that. But when you actually, if Google requests that you do the walkthrough, and that's literally taking your camera around and showing, hey, we're legit, and it's, not, that's going to be a problem. So, but a co-working space works, as well as any kind of a standalone or just a regular suite, because you're part of some, strip center or something. Any of those are going to be fine. You just got to show that you're, a real business. They've had a lot of scammers and stuff, and a lot of people, because the problem that's been, especially with home services, some of these home service companies, they started getting addresses where they don't actually have locations, and they'll do it in reasonably sized markets, in which case they were getting it confirmed, and then they were working to build up those listings, but they don't actually have anybody there to handle that business. Like, they're handling it some way, or they wouldn't bother with the market. But like I say, Google doesn't see it as totally legit, and they were getting so much of that stuff that, they decided to crack down harder on it. It's become a pain, in dealing with it, but, hopefully at the end of the day, it's to the benefit of all the businesses that are doing it the right way.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know a lot of people like to set up, if they're starting out, they might try to work out of their home. I know Google doesn't like that. I know, co-working spaces even can be tough because I know Google, when you do a video, they want to see signage, they want to see an actual desk, they want to
Mhm.
see trucks if you're a service business, especially a moving company. So I hear what
Yeah.
you're saying on that, and I know a lot of companies that have tried to reach another, half of their market that's on the other side of town, and it's tough for service businesses to be in the
Yep.
center of a city because a lot of times we need a bunch of parking or storage space, whatever. So, sometimes you have no choice, but if you're just starting out, be very mindful of that. And you mentioned amount of reviews that could be a diminishing return. I've heard like once you hit that like 1,000 review mark, then there's like something psychological that happens with clients. I don't know if there's any SEO effect to that, but like what is the number that a service business should aim for before they start to see some of those diminishing returns of number of reviews?
The diminishing returns, the way you should approach it is look at what your competition is honestly doing. Because if there are hundreds of returns or reviews ahead of you, that's going to be a big issue, right? Because but as you get higher, so one's got 500 and then another one's got 900 or something, you want to try to keep pace if you can. But if you're the person at the top, you're the company that has the 900 and the next one has the 500 or 400 or whatever, that's your point of diminishing returns because you're so far ahead. You want to keep getting more because you need relevancy. You need the recent stuff because, it's going to prioritize based on, somebody that gave you a review yesterday. So you want that, but you don't necessarily need to go at such a hard pace because you have some companies as they like build up, their client base becomes so large that they can really, get a lot of reviews. So you have to think of the psychology when you're actually going through, the listings themselves. So if I see the first guy and they're like 200, but the next one's 800 reviews and the third one is 50 reviews, the psychology is I'm going to go look at those bigger players, because the third one with 50 reviews is like, well, they don't have as much. And there's so many reviews showing up that if you've only got like 50 for home services, the question starts to become how good are you and how long have you, been around, versus these other obviously well-established companies, you know, but a lot of people like when they're reading the reviews, they're not going through 800 reviews. It's just influencing the stars and it's keeping pace with the competition. They're going to read though those most recent ones in the last couple weeks. And like when I click through and I'm reading any kind of reviews, I immediately go to the 1 stars. If I see that there's 800 or something, if I see a large number, even if I'm looking at the 1 stars, I'm also going to look at how recent they were. If this is stuff that's old, I'm going to say, well, obviously they're doing a good overall job. So I'm not going to worry about it too much because they got a few people and I'm going to want to know what they said. So that's the thing. There's not a number that you really stop at. The diminishing returns comes sort of based on your competition. I say, if you're so far ahead of them, that's your diminishing part. You got to keep going, but you don't necessarily have to keep going at that certain, a high pace. You just need to, stay ahead of them.
Makes a ton of sense. Let's switch gears for a moment and talk a little bit about podcasting. I talk to a lot of people that listen to this podcast, or just that I run into in my various networks that want to start a podcast of their own. And I offer a little advice. This has always just been more of a hobby than a full time
Hmm.
job. So I don't probably have the best advice when it comes to equipment and everything else. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on somebody who wants to start a podcast. Where should they start?
Well, if you're thinking of podcasting, if you haven't already done it, be a guest on other shows. It helps get a feel for it. It helps you get comfortable with the camera and everything because a lot of people, you know, it's a lot easier than if you're like doing a speaking event and stuff. But if you're not comfortable doing, just being out there talking, because I've interviewed some people and you can tell they haven't really done it before, so they got to you want to bring some energy. You want to know what you're going to, what's the story? What's the kind of focus? What are the things you want to talk about? But then from there, podcasting, if you're going to do it yourself, there's different types of podcasts. You can build Some are for brand awareness. You've got thought leadership podcasts. You've got community, related podcasts. There's different types, this one being a community related, because the podcast is meant for, moving company owners and people thinking of going into the space. That's a community that you're building up. So first you want to say, what is the audience I'm looking for? What do I want to do on that front? We produce some podcasts for business coaches and such, and their audience, for them, it's thought leadership. So you don't necessarily, you want to consider who is the audience, because that's going to matter on how big of an audience you're looking for. Because the business coach that does something that's thought leadership, they don't need a huge audience. They want a well-defined audience, though. They want business owners and people they might be able to work with that build a comfort level with them and saying, this guy really offers, some great advice. I would love to work with them because I've got some of these struggles, and just listening to the podcast, it's addressed some of the things that I've had to deal with. So understand who the audience is. Who are you trying to reach? And then you also want to consider, how do you want to conduct the podcast? Do you want to bring on guests? Do you want it to be you and a co-host? Do you want to just, put out your thoughts? So what is it going to be, that's going to make it interesting? And then you want to consider the subject matter. What is it you're going to be talking about? Because when people listen to podcasts, especially business related ones, they want to know that the podcast has some sort of focus, so that it's going to be interesting. So for example, the one we're doing, Emerging Brands, I'm interviewing different franchise owners, and the audience is entrepreneurs and potential entrepreneurs. People are saying, hey, I want to go into business for myself, but I want to have a safety net to it. And that's what franchises often, offer, is a safety net. So if I have that, what kind of concept then do I want to work with? Do I want to be a restaurant owner? Do I want to own a, moving company franchise or a home services business? What is it I want to do? So you want to, consider that subject matter. What are you actually talking about? What's the benefit to the listener if they listen to your podcast? And from there, it's equipment.
Yeah. What kind of, I guess, like, how can a local service business create a podcast that ultimately helps their core local business? What are some tactics, techniques, strategies that we can use to help to grow our local business in our city or our geographical area?
So some of it is who you bring on as guests too. One of the things that, if it was the case of like a moving company, franchise or a local business, think of it of bringing on guests. So podcasting is the best form of networking that exists, I think. I can go to a networking event. You could have 50 people there, Chamber puts it on or something. You could have, a bunch of people, but the reality is you're probably going to talk to 3 to 5 people while you're there. You're going to try to talk to a couple of people that you don't know. You're going to definitely talk to a few people that you do, because people go for their comfort zone. Whereas podcasting is always, you can bring on some people, but you're going to mostly bring on people you don't. And then you're able to network and build up relationships with those particular, people. And so if you're a moving company franchise, you start a local business podcast for that area, but maybe it's home focused, so you think of, okay, what's the community going to maybe, be interested in? And you bring on, title companies and mortgage brokers and realtors and stuff, people that you want to work with, people that makes sense. Because moving companies, they want to have a network of realtors. And the thing is most of the realtors might have somebody they're already referring people to. But if you are doing the podcast and you invite them to be on and talk about the housing market and where some of the hot properties are and things like that, bring them on. Well, now you've just had a chance to have a conversation with them. Now you can do some sort of follow-up later. That is huge, because like I say, you can build out your network, and people want the opportunity to be on podcasts. That's what, hey, I get to get on there and tell my story. That's what they want to be doing.
I love that. And it's something that I've been strongly considering, having, several years of podcasting to the moving community. My wheels are turning a little bit in a local, hyper local strategy. And I think you hit the nail on the head And I made some notes here that, podcasting is the best form of networking that exists. And that is so true
It
because
is.
I've grown and that I didn't even set out to intend to do this with the Grow Your Moving Company podcast, but it's allowed me to meet so many people in my industry and become recognized. And, it hasn't really had much of an influence on my actual business aside from the learning that I get from it. And there's, I guess, some byproducts too, with vendors and
Hmm.
having connections around the country, given the nature of the business. But as far as from a marketing standpoint in my local community, most people in Tampa Bay or Gainesville, the markets that we serve, don't even probably know I have this unless they're in the moving industry. So that's definitely something that's on my radar personally. I think the next step to do that would be to invite them into a legit studio where it's not just some people sitting at their kitchen counter type of thing. And so I'm looking at upgrading a lot of my equipment, and I know we're coming up on time here, but I just want to get some parting thoughts on the equipment that somebody like myself or somebody who's starting off in podcasting should invest in where they shouldn't skimp on.
Podcasting is also extremely affordable. Amazon has everything you need. Yeah. Our entire podcasting setup, you can get extreme. Okay. Just, but the thing is you don't have to. You know, the mic that I'm using is $75. Yeah, it does a really good job. You don't need headphones or anything like that. You need earbuds or something because you got to be able to hear. Okay. Because you're just, you need a quiet place, obviously, to be able to do it because you don't want a bunch of background noise. Typically, you're going to want a good camera. Yeah, but you can do a actual camera, but iPhones and stuff like that are really good. You just need a tripod to be able to put it on so you can get the right eye level. And you need lighting. You can get studio lighting that are soft boxes you can get a set of 2 for I think it's like $60, on Amazon. Depending on where you're going to set up, you may want a $30 ring light, you may not. Like this setup here doesn't have that. And you're going to want to consider the background. So you want, let's say, what do you want to put behind you so you make it a little more interesting? And you can make it whatever you want. But if you're going to do something where you're doing it regularly, try to stage it. So you can set it up. I've got a different studio setup than this one. Another one that's, where I've got a desk, but I've got all the lighting set up properly. I've got the background. It's kind of interesting, things on the walls and stuff. And I leave it that way. And that's how we get on the podcast. And so the whole setup, you can get started with all the stuff you need for like $250. And over time, if you want to spend a ton of money, sure, you can do that. Okay. But you really don't have to make a good looking podcast. It's some of it's about the graphics and stuff, the way you set up the studios, but all the studios are online now. I say you're using Riverside. We use one called StreamYard, and that makes it really affordable too.
I love it. Great advice. And my wheels are turning. So really excited to have had this conversation here, Cash. How can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about using your services, whether it's for digital marketing or for promoting and setting up their own podcast?
Well, the digital marketing side's at titandigital.com. That's easy enough. The podcasting side is titanmediaworks with an X.com. And I can be reached at cash@titandigital. And if you look on LinkedIn, I'm easy enough to find and connect with because I'm the one person that's got Cash Miller actually in the name instead of like being all screwy with numbers and stuff. Because there's not a bunch of people that have my name. So
awesome. And I guess real quick, we maybe didn't even talk on this, but what services do you offer for people that either currently run a podcast or about to run a podcast so that they know to reach out to you if they have podcast needs?
We do full production. So it's, a done for you service. All you got to do is show up and be the host, which is, we try to make it as easy as possible. And then if you want to go on to other podcasts, we also offer guest booking services. So we'll get you on appropriate podcasts, so that you can, get started there if you wanted to, before you even become a host. But if it's podcasting related, we can help.
I love it. Thanks, Cash, for joining me here on the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. And I look forward to working with you. I know you and I are going to be working together a little bit going forward. So I'm excited for what the future holds.
Yeah, me too. And thank you for having me on this show.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day, and we will be in touch.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you'd like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.